Hello and welcome to the fifth webinar as part of the NDIS Success Roadmap, Strategies for Success. Today we're going to talk more about marketing your new or expanded NDIS services. Firstly, Community Business Bureau acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. The NDIS has completely flipped the business models of disability service providers in recent years. The old market was one where service providers were block funded and individual clients or participants of the NDIS had to come to the provider. Now, the individual participant has choice and control over the service provider that they engage. The power is in their hands. In response, disability service organisations now have to firstly, have a greater focus on the customer journey and experience, and secondly, attract new clients to cover lost clients through attrition and in order to grow. Initially, most participants stayed with their existing service providers. However, as new services and ways of service delivery are available, people make more informed choices and choose more flexible, responsive, and diverse services. More innovative services are emerging. From the organisational perspective, many long-standing disability providers will have started out with a mission that was predefined by the existing beneficiaries of the organisation, and even this may need to evolve as the market changes too. Welcome to Strategies for Success webinar. My name is Andrew Ellis, and on behalf of the CBB Business Consulting team, I'd like to welcome you to this NDIS Success webinar. In today's webinar, we'll talk about strategies for success with improving your marketing strategy, and customer journey and experience to have a sustainable business. We'll speak about both attracting and retaining clients. This is the fifth webinar in our NDIS Success series. In the first webinar, we provided insights into the fundamentals for success within the NDIS market and who gets an NDIS plan, what is funded, and how the money can be spent. The second webinar was about the importance of understanding the market that you want to operate within. We looked at the people that you support, what they need and want from their NDIS provider, and who else is already providing NDIS services in your area. In the third webinar, we spoke about how to design new NDIS services for people with disability. In the fourth, we looked at NDIS compliance requirements for registered providers, but also for unregistered providers, that is, quality, compliance, and risk. In the last webinar of this series, we will explain the importance of understanding and analysing your potential revenue and your associated costs. Financial viability and sustainability is critical when operating in the NDIS market. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch the earlier webinars, you can find them on the CBB website. Watching all the webinars will maximise your learnings. We also recommend that you work through the activity worksheets. There's an activity worksheet for each webinar, and we've compiled a template which will help you to develop a business plan. Additional information and links are available on our website. We cannot cover every detail in depth in a short webinar, and you'll surely have questions after watching this. Please use the LinkedIn forum to ask questions or to give us some feedback. You can access LinkedIn online, or you can download the LinkedIn app onto your phone, and there's no cost involved with that. If you have trouble accessing LinkedIn group, then please just give us a call or email us at ndis@cbb.com.au. There are four parts to today's webinar. Firstly, we'll talk about the connection from your business strategy to marketing strategy. Secondly, we'll talk about the marketing strategy and plan, and this includes the marketing mix, which involves the different P's of marketing. So it's about product, positioning, price, place, and promotion. We also want to spend some time talking about promotion further in more detail, and then lastly, we'll look at the customer experience and journey. As we go through today's webinar, I encourage you to have the activity worksheet close to hand. You might find it useful to pause the webinar so that you can complete the exercises as you go. Let's start off today looking at connecting the business strategy to the marketing strategy. If you've been following along for all of the previous webinars, then you'll recall having done some exercises in the activity workbook, and perhaps even with the business plan and template that will help prepare you for what we're doing in this webinar. Our second webinar on understanding the market asked you to think about some things such as, what is your strategy? Who are your target markets? Who are your competitors and what mitigation strategies do you have going up against them? What differentiates your organisation? The third webinar on service design had you thinking about what does your service or your product look like and what markets and locations are you serving? All of these elements are critical in setting the basis for your marketing strategy, plan and activities. The marketing strategy needs to align with the business strategy, and your marketing strategy will help you to achieve your business strategy, or put another way, the overall strategic plan. Marketing goals or objectives need to link to the overall business goals or objectives, since the purpose of marketing is to support the overall organisation's vision and strategic direction. Let's talk about growth for a minute. Many or even most organisations working under the NDIS will have growth as some part of your goals and strategic plan. Some may want to grow quickly and even significantly, but maybe you're a sole provider and in a small regional market and you don't plan to grow, but you do want to maintain consistent customer numbers, and that's okay. Strategies within this webinar will help you with attracting new clients, because that's important to ensure that your business doesn't go backwards if a client relocates from your region or if someone else was to pass away. If you're looking to grow your overall business and your NDIS business, you need to be realistic about what growth to target. How much growth do you want? And how much growth can your organisation handle? How will you scale to achieve growth? Within Australia, a 20% year-on-year growth puts you into the fastest growing businesses. So doubling in a year, for example, is well beyond the norm and can carry major risks and challenges. What does your strategic plan say about growth? It's important to understand your business strategy before you do your marketing strategy. Plus, the methodical build-up in your strategy development and market analysis, like we've spoken about in earlier webinars, will normally include some exercises like SWOT or SOAR and PESTEL, and they can be used to inform your marketing strategy and goals too. If you don't have a current organisational strategic plan, then you should start here, as it will inform marketing strategy and provide a framework for your decisions. If you have inefficiencies in your organisation at the moment and then scale up and grow under the NDIS, then you'll also be scaling up those inefficiencies. So it may be worthwhile addressing internal growth constraints before pursuing major growth in services. One organisation I know some years back had a 2-year strategic plan where the theme of the first year was building for growth and the theme of the second year was going for growth. They knew that they wanted to grow, but they needed to address some systems and key processes before they got too far. We've seen from earlier webinars that the NDIS market continues to grow, and there's still another 100,000 participants to be added to the NDIS before it reaches maturity. We know that utilisation rates across the country are still quite low, and there are opportunities to serve more customers with more services from both these perspectives. Under the NDIS business model, it's critical that you be able to secure sufficient and enough client business to make your NDIS product or service financially viable. Whether that's about sustaining a consistent client load and replacing any lost customers or growing will depend on your strategic plan and vision. How will you attract new clients will have a significant impact on your success as an NDIS business, and this comes through marketing. It's important to understand how potential customers come to know about your organisation. Marketing is about generating leads and potential new customers. So we can see from the graph here about existing customers, some may be lost, many will be retained, and also there's new customers that will come and form part of the new customer group. We all like to think that we do a really good job of what our organisation's main purpose and services are, but marketing can force us to ask the hard questions about how good are we really? How good are we at ensuring a consistent delivery of service that every customer goes home valuing? And how good are we when compared to our main competitors? It's important to find a sweet spot between the following. Your purpose. Are you a specialist or a generalist? The purpose points to the strategic plan and the strategic direction. It also relates back to the objects of the organisation found in the Constitution and the reasons that others, perhaps even before your time in the organisation, started the organisation. Commercial viability. Will you only focus on services that deliver a minimum margin as a percentage or dollar basis, or will you loss lead on some services so that you can bring clients in to provide other services to them? Your principles. Are there services that you specifically will not provide, or ways that you go about it that you just won't do? Values. Are there customer goals that you specifically will not cater to? You need to make sure that you've got an alignment and you're sitting in the sweet spot between all of these things in your organisation. Our next topic today is to look at the marketing strategy and plan, and we'll go on from there to think about the marketing budget. Firstly though, let's have a definition for marketing just so that we all can understand what it is that we're referring to. We'll come to see through the rest of this webinar that marketing is the activities and the processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers or clients, partners, and society at large. It's a process of exchanging value between humans for benefit. Starting to look more at marketing, we want to hone in on more detail about your organisation's purpose from the earlier slide. One way to think about this is to look at what author Simon Sinek refers to as the golden circle. The golden circle starts first by asking why, and then you move out to the how and the what. Why means starting with your organisation's purpose, but also looking at your brand. Your brand is part to do with your logo and colour scheme, but the more important, though less tangible part is the values behind the brand. For example, Toyota has long been known for quality and reliability. When people think about the body shop, you think about their work and values in protecting the planet and not testing on animals. When you think about Apple, you think innovation and simplistic design. What is it that people think about when they think about your brand and organisation? Brand starts with the organisation's values and the why your organisation exists. After establishing that, do you have a consistent visual style for your brand? Colours, shape, fonts? Is it used consistently? If you have a tagline or slogan, does it accurately reflect your unique products and services? Is your signage up to date and easily recognisable at a glance? Are all of your physical assets consistently and distinctively branded across everything that a customer might see, including vehicles, uniforms, and your premises? After knowing the why, you can move out to the how, which includes your positioning in your target markets, and then to the what, which gets to the marketing activities and tactics. Moving to the how. We're now going to go through 3 steps which are about your positioning, the target market, and having targets, which is about goals or objectives to put into the plan. Positioning, this is your brand. How do you compare against competitors and your unique strengths? Target market or customer segment is the group of customers that you're focused on serving. Targets, this is about having some goals and objectives related to the marketing activities which support the overall business strategic objectives. We'll come to these in more details across the slides ahead. The elements that you can draw on to promote or market your organisation are known as the marketing mix. Like an iceberg, some of the marketing elements are more visible above the water than others. Customers or potential customers will see and notice some aspects of your organisation more easily than others. The marketing mix includes your promotion, how you advertise and promote the organisation. For example, a website, public relations, for example, newspaper and media, advertising, signage, and word of mouth. The product, what the customer gets, which is the tangible product or intangible service. The price, what it costs and the way in which customers pay. The place, where it is and how you can get the product or services. Like the iceberg, the visible parts of what we often think of as marketing can only be done well if you have the marketing strategy and plans in place. Otherwise, you risk wasting resources with poor messaging to the wrong people. The elements that you can draw on to promote or market your organisation are known as the marketing mix, and we're going to start talking more about the elements that are less visible now. So under the surface, we have people, which is about who do you serve? and what it is that they need. You also have the purpose, which is about why the organisation exists. And we've spoken a little bit to the purpose earlier in the webinar. Your position is about how you stand out among your competitors and around other options in the market. And sometimes that might be a direct competitor, but sometimes it can be an alternative way for the person to have that service or product delivered, which is not actually directly comparable to what it is that you do. Let's think about marketing that works. Marketing that relies on understanding your customer context, your competitors, and your competencies. Those items were part of our second webinar that we've done a few weeks ago. Marketing that works also involves strategy, which is about your people, your purpose, your position. And we've talked about the service design, which includes your people and market position within webinar 3. Then when it comes to marketing, there are different marketing tactics as part of the marketing mix, with product, price, place, and promotion. You can think about each of these as levers that you can pull on to grow your market and to grow your NDIS business. Steps to building a marketing strategy involve understanding the market that you're operating in, as we've discussed in webinar 2, then the strategic plan for the organisation. You might have an existing strategy, or you could be building that up at the moment using the business plan template provided through this program on the NDIS Success part of the CBP website. And then after that, looking at the P's in the marketing mix. Your product or service, if you're a service-based business, was the subject of the third webinar where we worked through the design of your service. This includes the resources, systems, and processes, technology, setup costs, ongoing costs, and capital expenditure. You should think about this product or service both in terms of what existing customers want, that's what makes them happy and come back again and again, and what your new customers might want. The maximum price is set by the NDIS price guide. The NDIS also sets the categories and the structure around which you can structure your services and the price charged. If you need a reminder or more information about this, then please go back and review webinar 4 on quality, compliance, and risk. The NDIS intend that at some future point in time, they'll do away with the price guide and allow providers to set the price themselves. So you might want to think in future about what you would do if and when the price list ends. The place where you deliver services was also part of webinar 3 on service design. And to a lesser extent, we also spoke in webinar 2, understanding the market, about how you might consider expansion options, for example, based on geography. Place includes how to get your product or service to market and how people can buy it. So you'll see from this, we've already thought a lot about the elements that make up your marketing mix throughout these different webinars so far. And the place that we started from in understanding the market was to ensure that your NDIS services are what your existing and future customers want and are not in an area already saturated by the services of competitors. We'll speak more about promotion shortly, but first, let's just stop and have a look at an example. Looking at an example, let's think about a hypothetical business in central Queensland that's focused on providing support coordination services. The product is that this provider is focused on delivering support coordination services within the central Queensland area. Given the relative small size of the market in this regional area, they've decided to be a generalist provider to people living with any form of disability, rather than being specialised based on one particular type of client. The price is set by the NDIS price guide at about $98 an hour. There are several different categories of service, but all at the same price point. The place or places are that there is an existing office in Rockhampton, a new office in Gladstone, and as part of these following these webinars through, this hypothetical organisation has identified a growth opportunity to build their business into another regional town in Mackay. Now with promotion, the organisation is focused on consolidating its strong position and growth in Rockhampton and positioning for new growth in the Gladstone area. Rockhampton office's strategy involves building partnerships with potential referral agencies. In Gladstone, there's a focus on some Facebook ads and boosts of posts which target residents in and around the town who have interests on Facebook that relate to disability and disability services. In future, the organisation wants to have a business in Mackay, and so just starting to do some work to build brand awareness through a newspaper editorial and a successful client experience. You can see from this example, there might be different priorities and focal areas as part of the marketing mix and promotion. And that's based somewhat on the segmentation geographically in this example of your market. Now let's dive a little bit deeper. It helps when building your marketing strategy to think about the objectives and the targets. We'll talk about activities in the marketing plan in a few minutes, and that's how you go about achieving the strategy and the goals and objectives. The table here is included in the activity worksheet, which you can use to develop your own marketing objectives and targets. What are the goals, or what are you trying to achieve from the marketing activities? Ensure you include activities related to the launch of any new programs and services, as well as ongoingly getting new clients for existing services. For example, you might want to reach 100 potential new customers with an aim that 5 of them inquire about a new service. Next up, have a think about the activities which might make up the marketing plan and that will help you to achieve those objectives. Again, the table here is included in the activity worksheet, which you can use to develop your own list of marketing activities as part of the marketing plan. This is to outline your planned marketing related activities that you'll undertake in order to achieve strategic goals and objectives that you have from the previous slide. For example, each quarter you might want to boost one of your Facebook posts which focuses on services to people with multiple sclerosis in the region, with a focus on the age and gender profile and interest consistent with this type of person. We're going to talk more about marketing tactics in the next section, so you may want to come back to these activities and to the worksheet at the end of the session. After identifying the marketing targets and activities, you need to figure out how much it will all cost. Some of this we'll think about in the financial sustainability webinar number 6. But at this stage, you could start to build up a bit of a marketing budget. CBB wrote an article in one of our forward blog posts recently about how to create a marketing budget. So you might like to go and look up this on our website to be able to find out more on this topic. To put the marketing budget together, you want to start by listing out the key activities you're going to do in order to promote the organisation to potential new clients and to ensure that your existing clients are coming back. Make an assessment of what you think each will cost and include that in the table as well. Some might be a one-off cost that can be included in the subtotal, and others might be something that you do on a monthly or quarterly basis, such as advertising. You need to use the unit rates for that. Following our previous example, we might estimate that to run campaigns on Facebook to boost posts with the aim of attracting new clients will cost us $200 each time, with a plan to do so quarterly and an annual budget for that line item of $800. So that talks you through a bit of the process of how you go from marketing strategy, your goals, objectives, targets, through your marketing activities that you're going to plan out to do, and then into a budget. And we want to dive in and be a bit more tangible, practical in terms of promotion, and give you some more things to think about as you're identifying your potential new customers and the people that you want to engage with through the marketing of the organisation. Promotion is a key area of marketing. It's an element that many disability-focused businesses didn't have to think much about prior to the NDIS, but that is becoming more and more important now. From an organisational perspective, the activities that you perform need to take potential customers from a place where they might not have even heard about you to a place where they become clients, repeat clients, and hopefully they'll even refer their friends and family to become your clients too. Thinking about this from the potential customer's perspective now, they need to go on a journey discovering more about you, your organisation, whether they can trust you, and ultimately getting to a point of making a decision to do business with you. In thinking about this journey, it can be helpful to think of this process a bit like a funnel. Just because someone calls your office to inquire about a service doesn't guarantee that they'll end up using your services or even becoming a regular customer. Depending on your business model, you might need 5 or 10 such inquiries before you end up with a new customer. In other words, it might take 5 or 10 potential clients at the top of the funnel for one to fall out the bottom and to become a client or even a repeat client. So just explaining the different steps of the funnel. The first step is to reach your target audience or your potential customers with your message, your brand, your value proposition. You could use the NDIS provider list or advertising, direct marketing, digital marketing, social media, etc. You need the right mix of paid, owned, and earned media to drive a response, and a clear call to action. We're going to talk about that media and also the assets that you've got as an organisation that you can use to reach out to this audience in a few slides' time. You need to engage your target customer. The customer might react in some way to your message, and that might be that they click an ad, they'll click through to your website, they might sign up for like an e-newsletter, they might register interest, or they might even share one of your social media posts, but they start to engage with you. The third step is inquiry. A prospective customer decides to reach out and make an inquiry. Now that could be phone, email, they might walk into the office, might be face-to-face in the community at an event or something, or it could be via your social media. You need to latch onto that prospect the instant they make contact and treat them like gold from the very first interaction. You need to give the prospective customer a surprise or delight moment during the initial interaction to make them want more. And even if they don't reach the next stage of wanting you to propose something to them in terms of services you can provide, you need to have a system to maintain regular contact with them in case they're just slow in follow-up and happy or not happy with the service that they chose. After that, you need to propose a solution for that prospective customer. So often that'll be providing a quote or like a draft service agreement under the NDIS. The fifth step is to sell something to them. And that will be to convert the person from a prospect to a paying customer. At that point, you would be executing a service agreement and you might start going through the onboarding activities or the intake activities that your organization has. After that, you need to deliver or even over-deliver on your proposal to ensure that the customer stays with you. As part of retaining, you need to cultivate the relationship. Let the customer know how appreciative you are of their business. Aim for the customer to stay with you for their lifetime, depending on your service and target demographic. Or at very least, you might want to upsell to other services by partnerships, complementary providers if that's not your core business. And you might even need to start this process again with that other service or new service that you would want to provide to them. So just starting at the top, we talked about having a target audience or potential customers. Who is your audience? It's about your target audience or your potential customers, which is not the same as your current customers. The audience for your marketing activities are potential customers, those who might interact with your organization in future. Once you know your product or service, and before you can develop the marketing plan, you need to really understand who your target market is. So here are a few things just to think about as you're really getting clear and starting to define and to segment different parts of your market. Who are your most important customers? Who are the beneficiaries that the organization will set up to provide services to at the start? This will give you a good hint as to who your target market is. Marketers have many different ways of segmenting or breaking down the target market of potential customers. And when you define this, there's no right or wrong, as it depends on each market. Each target market or segment should be unique. It could be based on things like demographic information, geographic, behavior, or psychographic factors. The more accurate you can define it, the better it will help in setting out your marketing plan. We've talked about your market position in webinar 2, understanding the market, but what value do you offer your customers? How does this address their needs? How is it different or better than your competitors? Instead, it might be you're in a rural or remote area where there aren't any competitors, and that might look a little bit different. When it comes to positioning your organization based on the different market segments, you should recall the core competencies or the strengths and the market understanding, which includes market size and competitors that we've spoken about in webinar 2. For each target market segment, you want to review what they want and what their motivators would be. From there, you can develop your positioning, what you or we want to be known for in each segment. Whilst unique, don't make them too different to each other. There's a difference between your positioning and your messaging. As an example, have a think about an organization whose overall purpose is to work with people with visual impairment. They have a part of the business working in disability employment services. The purpose of the Disability Employment Services business unit is twofold. Firstly, in supporting people with visual impairment with finding and keeping employment. Secondly, they're a generalist provider with a broader client base, and this work creates a surplus which is applied to the other charitable purposes of the organisation working with people with visual impairment. In this example, the disability employment services business has two market positions. Firstly, to the customers who have a visual impairment, they want to be seen as a specialist provider, which is the best business of its kind working with people with visual impairment. They want to position as the specialist and as an expert. But secondly, to customers with other forms of disability, they want to be seen as an employment services business capable of supporting anyone to get and keep a job. The messages are important to not get mixed up. For example, if a potential customer with a physical disability just considers that that organisation is focused on people with visual impairment, then they wouldn't know to go there. There might be a range of different issues which your target audience of potential customers have as drivers and as barriers that you need to consider in marketing and selling services to them. What drivers are there that prompt consideration of your service? For example, is it driven by the needs and funding in their NDIS plan for daily supports? Is it related to achieving a goal? Is it about geography, location? What is it? What are those drivers that are driving why they would want to come to your service? Are there barriers that prevent your potential customers from accessing your services? This might be physical in the case of access limitations or the distance from your premises to their home. It could relate to thoughts or beliefs they might have about your organisation. The market might prevent you from working with the customer, depending on the content of their NDIS plan or local competitors. Life circumstances with the other supports the participant has could act as a barrier in choosing your service, and there might be other issues. If you want or need to use the media to reach your potential customers, then think first about what type of media will be most effective in terms of the return on investment for you. There's three different types of media that you can consider. Paid promotion is advertising in all of its forms. You pay to control the message and to whom it's sent. Owned promotion is the communication you control directly. Your website, your product experience, staff, signage on your vehicles, all those things communicate. Your social media as well. Earned promotion is all the communication you can't control. It's word of mouth, journalist publicity, including any influences in your market and that your organisation has. All three kinds have a place. Without paid media, it's hard to reach enough people. Without attention to owned media, the people you might reach might not turn into a sale. If you fail to properly set up channels to encourage people to share information and generate earned media, then you miss an opportunity to grow your reputation and perhaps gain extra reach as well. Everything communicates. In reaching your target audience of potential customers, it is best to start off by looking at all of your existing assets that can be used. It's really important to think from your customer's perspective, not the media perspective. If you know what problem you're solving, then suddenly you have a whole world of things that you can use to connect with them. Before you get to looking at what advertising options you would do, I'd recommend having a look at what assets you have so you can try and use as many assets as possible effectively and efficiently before you need to spend any money on media. Your assets include things like marketing, your collateral, your website, your platforms, your advertising, your content, your social media, your brand and product. That's about your reputation, your awareness, the value, and the product and service experiences that people have with you. There's the physical assets you have, the space, the premises, merchandise, vehicles, office, where it is that customers come in to interact with your organisation. Intellectual assets you have, some of that can be professional know-how or intellectual property. It's customers' knowledge and it's your organisation's history and the content that you have. There's human assets as well, staff, customers, champions and spokespeople. And then there's if you've got partners as an organisation, any of their assets as well. So collaborators, funders, the media can also form good partners that can help you to leverage the messages that you're getting out. In looking at an example, let's think again about a different but hypothetical business, and it might be one that's focused on a particular type of acquired disability. Let's say the organisation is well known as a reference point when people are first diagnosed with this disability, and so many potential customers come to them at that point in their life journey when they're just diagnosed. However, those clients don't always stay long term as a client, meaning that the organisation now has a database of, say, 1,000 potential customers, but only 300 are using existing services. Besides that customer database, the organisation has some other existing assets with a contact centre, a quarterly newsletter, a website, and good followings on social media channels. So they've got two audiences. Firstly, the existing customers, and they need to find a way to reach out to the 700 people living with the type of disability that the organisation is focused on, but who aren't well engaged with the organisation. Potential customers usually need to hear about your organisation a number of times before they'll purchase services from you. They also want to know that they can trust you and build some relationship. So finding a way to connect with the 700 potential customers through the social media and the newsletter would ease them back into knowing your organisation and build trust and likely develop some new customer transactions. In this organisation's case, I would suggest it's pointless focusing on a paid ad buy when you already have a good idea who the potential customers are through your database. Utilising the contact centre or reception and admin staff to reach out and check contact details would be a more cost-effective way to start to identify and target some new customers than paid media. You can see from this example there's a need for a number of different marketing activities to better utilise existing assets. And let's look now more, we've spoken more about marketing plans and budgets earlier and how to structure those. And so now you could go back and take what we've talked about in the last little while and apply that back into the listing of your marketing strategy, your goals, marketing plan activities, and start to build up a bit of that budget that you've got on that template. So if you want to pause now and have a think about all those things while it's fresh in your mind, then now's probably a good time to pause the webinar. We're about to move on to the next segment or next part of the customer journey and experience. And now will be a good time just to pause and reflect on what you might want to do differently or additionally as marketing activities like we've talked about. So our final section is talking about the customer journey and experience. As we speak about the customer journey and experience, you should think about this in the context of the previous webinars and the whole ethos of the NDIS. The NDIS is about giving individual participants choice and control over their needs and goals and the services that they buy. Instead of the old model of block-funded organisations helping individuals, the NDIS has the participant as the customer with the power to choose a provider that best suits them. To be successful in the NDIS business model, you need to understand your customer segments, including what's important to them and what they value about your service, and it may not be what you always think it is. You need to be customer focused, having person-centered approach about meeting the participants' goals, not about what's operationally convenient for you as the service provider. It's important to consider the customer experience, as this will contribute to customer retention and your brand reputation. This includes every step of the way from when they phone you or come into your office to how the service is delivered and how it is invoiced after. Making sure that the customer experience meets the marketing promise is so important, and it sets the basis for customer satisfaction or otherwise. With your low utilisation rates for NDIS plans across the country, and even lower in regional and remote areas, there remain strong opportunities for organisations to achieve growth simply by providing more of the same services to existing customers in spending a higher proportion of their plan. It makes sense, therefore, that a satisfied customer will continue coming back to your organisation to ensure that they max out the services that they can get from you within their NDIS plan in support of their disability and their goal achievement. Some strategies to help keep existing customers happy can include to deliver or over-deliver on your proposal to ensure they stay with you. Cultivate the relationship and let the customer know how appreciative you are of their business. You can aim for the customer to stay with you for their lifetime, depending on your service and target demographic. You can focus on an end-to-end customer experience from onboarding through service delivery to transition from service. You can make sure that you're hearing the voice of the customer and also upsell to other services, providing additional value to them. You can have all the right systems and processes in place, but it's still up to people to implement these. You can build a customer-centric culture within your organisation by recruiting for customer service values and experience, by measuring and reporting customer service indicators, and by integrating into performance management and role modeling the right behaviours. As one of my managers said some years ago, every role in the company is either directly working with customers or supporting someone else who is. Defining all roles in terms of the customer creates a conscious focus on the impact that a process or system change can have on the customer experience. The picture on screen is an example of how you can do a customer journey map. This model shown comes from an organisation called Design a Better Business, and they have other examples on their website of different other models you can use to analyse other elements of your business. There's a link in the activity worksheet to this model so you can find out more. But to use this model to articulate and think through your customer journey, you start with the persona, and that's about defining different types of customer that you're creating the journey for. You can be specific, for example, the name, age, occupation, skills, interests, and this would match to your target market and audience. That is, work and thinking you've done in watching Understanding the Market webinar 2. Secondly, there's the touch points. So that's the rectangles that go across the middle of the screen and across the model. What are the different moments of interaction you have with the customer? Whether it's in your office or your suite, at their home, a group or community centre, online, by webinar, phone, mail, or even just interacting with things like service agreements and invoices. Some moments may be really important to the customer, but are not currently touch points. Mapping out all these moments with the customer as the primary focus will help you to really define the services that you're providing. Thirdly, across the bottom, the mood. What's the customer's mood and their satisfaction? Have they got a happy face, a sad face, a neutral face? Are they happy, angry, frustrated? And what is it about that step that makes it like that? Starting to map this out and identify where the pain points are, where customers get upset, can be useful, because then you can dive into that in a more deep way and maybe change the process to stop that from happening. Fourth, have a look at the timeline and stages. And if you're defining at least 5 moments in the journey, you'll be able to go through a step-by-step experience that the customer goes through, from initial inquiry, intake, signed service agreement, service delivery, and then invoicing at the end. It's important stage by stage to look at the customer's needs. What is the job that the customer wants to get done in each of the stages? And how important are some of the softer things? I did an exercise like this with a client recently, and we really, the staff who were looking at that really focused on how important it was in the early stages, especially, but all the way through, building a rapport, trust, relationship with the client. And that's just so critical all the way through. So some of the customer needs can be tangible. They need a piece of paper. They need, an invoice with the right information on it. But some of it can be less tangible, and things like relationship, trust, rapport is pretty critical when it goes through this. Customer Journey Map provides insights into how customers experience a product or service, as well as how they might be better served or even delighted. Customer journeys are not linear. The customer might jump from one phase to another, and this process can be used to identify where customers get stuck, where they have great experiences, and to understand why, so that you can really maximize and get the best out of the process. It helps when doing this to look at your products and services and your organizational processes through the lens of the customer. And one outcome of writing a customer journey like this can be to identify some quick wins to act on immediately. The customer journey is relevant for everyone in the organization. Everyone on the team and in your company must understand what your customers experience. That is, how they feel, what they struggle with, and how you can improve the experience. Apply the example of a customer journey map for, say, a speech pathologist practice, which is an unregistered provider. In this example, we consider the customer as a self-managed NDIS participant who is seeking the speech pathologist services. The participant or customer's touch points with the organisation might be to make an inquiry and booking via the website. Then they might enter the speech pathologist's office or medical suite, receive the services, get the invoice, and make payment before leaving. When inquiring and making a booking via the website, the customer needs up-to-date information, knowledge, and that the NDIS services can be provided, and timely responses to their requests. When arriving at the speech pathologist, the customer needs accessible parking, a friendly reception, including somewhere comfortable to sit while they wait, and hopefully a short waiting time. In receiving the services, the customer wants to be listened to, have choice and control, and receive a quality service. After the service, the customer needs to pay, so it will require an accurate invoice and details of how to pay. All NDIS providers need to have a complaints management system in place, no matter if they're registered or unregistered. And that was part of what we've included in webinar 4. The complaints management system needs to be relevant to supports delivered in your registration group, compliant with the NDIS complaint rules, and follow principles of fairness and natural justice. It needs to be relevant to the size and scale of the provider and the scope and complexity of supports. It needs to also be accessible, provide advice on access to advocates. While this is an important part and relates to times when a customer has a bad experience, many providers have also found value in having a broader customer feedback system which is customised to your organisation and can be used to provide feedback on what's working and what needs to be improved. Also to receive positive feedback. Maybe you already have an NDIS complaints management system and other forms of customer surveys and are thinking about how to further improve your customer feedback. In that case, I'd suggest you could look into things like Net Promoter Scores as a more advanced way to measure your customer satisfaction over time. The Net Promoter Score uses the question of would you recommend as the most single significant indicator of customer satisfaction. You can find out more information about this model on the internet for examples of how it's calculated. As we reach the end of today's webinar, we want to summarise the outcomes you should have reached if you've been following along and completing the exercises in the activity worksheet. We started out today looking at the marketing strategy in the context of and alignment to the business strategy. We looked at the marketing strategy, marketing plan, and provided an exercise in the activity worksheet to start thinking about a marketing budget. We spoke about your organisation's marketing mix and lead generation process to identify the gaps and shortfalls in your marketing process and ensure this is a smooth process for all customers. Under the NDIS business model, we've also been seeing how important it is to keep existing customers happy, nurturing them through the customer experience and journey. Being successful under the NDIS involves growing new customers to replace lost ones and adding new ones if your plans are to grow. What should you do after watching this 5th webinar? Well, please review the questions in this week's activity worksheet and the business plan template. To find the resources and more, please also visit the NDIS Success tab on our website. Please join the LinkedIn group and post a question or like a question so we know which questions to address first. I trust that you found value in today's webinar. The Q&A session for Strategies for Success will be released on the 16th of June, and we would value you contributing a question via email or the LinkedIn group. The next webinar in the series and the last one in the management series is on sustainability in the NDIS. In this webinar, we'll look at the financial sustainability of NDIS businesses. The sustainability in the NDIS webinar is available on the 23rd of June, followed by the Q&A session a week later on the 30th of June. Thank you for watching our 5th webinar, Strategies for Success, and goodbye for now.